Hey guys, Dave again. So what's up with this scary title that we got going on here for this video? So somebody put in the comments, they asked me to do sort of job market analysis for Wyoming. They were thinking about moving here. And it really got me thinking, before we go down that rabbit hole, and we will, and we'll get into it, and I think it'll probably get covered a lot in the next video about sort of where Wyoming's facing some challenges. If you haven't figured out already, it's going to be one of those finance videos nobody watches or cares about. So basically, what we're looking at is we have some macro events, some global macro events. So macro being the whole economy that's going on, that's sort of impacting everything. So, and we'll get into some specific industries here that are going to directly be affected, and we'll do them in the near term. So near term being 2025 to 2028, you'll see major disruptions in these industries. So what's going on is technology is rolling out and it's making things way more efficient. So where that's a problem is jobs are created in inefficiency. So we use humans to overcome things that we can't do simply with machines. That's how the Industrial Revolution came along. You had mechanical advantages that sort of came in, made things more efficient. You didn't need as many people. Companies made more money. You're seeing the same thing with this iteration of technology and AI and platforms in aggregating different services. So let me give you some examples. So Tesla is rolling out self-driving cars. Well, not only are they creating a car, they're creating a self-driving car, which is now one big service. So ultimately what's going to happen is you're not going to own a car. You're going to pay a monthly fee to Tesla. And when you need a car, one will drive up, show up, you'll use the car. It'll drive you around and do everything for you. And then when you're done with it, you'll release it back into the network and the car will go away and go help somebody else. So right now, your average car sits in the driveway or non-use, whatever, 95% of the time. You only use a car about 5% of the time. So this will drive utilization of cars up. It will underpin the car manufacturers. So the demand for more cars is actually going to decrease. It's not going to increase. So auto manufacturers, they're going to lose their jobs. And I don't know if you've seen this yet or figured this out, but if you think about Uber and Lyft, where do they add value when a car can drive itself? So we're losing two industries basically with this one disruptive company, which is Tesla. So Tesla and their self-driving cars are going to get rid of Uber and Lyft because you don't need a person to drive the car around when the car can do it for you. Probably better. No offense if you drive for Uber or Lyft, but that car is going to drive a lot better than you are. And then on top of it, they're not going to need to make as many cars because we're going to utilize the cars that we have more. So, and you're going to see every auto manufacturer pivot and shift to this platform. It's the only way for them to stay in business. People buying cars and using them and them having a service model just isn't going to work in the future. I know it's hard to believe, and I know it's not something we want to believe, but it's genuinely going to happen. Same sort of scenario with trucking. If you look at trucking and shipping goods, the biggest expense is typically the driver. Once you can take the driver out and the truck is self-driving, there's not a need for truck drivers anymore. I wouldn't want to be going to truck driving school right now and trying to get in and break into that career. It's paying well in the short term because they're bridging that gap to where the trucks get to drive themselves, but that's coming. And then the last piece that, at least this part, this first piece that's going to get disrupted is going to be insurance companies. And the reason I say that is human drivers are huge liabilities. They're very reckless. They speed, they run stop signs, they run red lights, they do all of that kind of stuff. They get distracted. A self-driving car isn't going to do that. And I almost question if there's going to be a need for auto insurance, and if these large platforms or auto manufacturers or whoever ultimately wins that race doesn't just self-insure their own cars because they trust them. And you can already see that sort of with Tesla. Tesla will insure their best drivers. If you have the autopilot feature, they'll underwrite your insurance. It's all really heading that way anyway. Okay, so what other industries in this doom and gloom do you not want to get into? If it were me, I wouldn't want to get into teaching. And I say that because if you take a look, Zoom, yeah, and we see the short-term implications, Zoom and whatnot, but what you're going to see is AI improve. You're going to have a virtual teacher and AI is going to answer the questions. It'll create its own lesson plans, and it's going to really drive that industry. There's not going to be a need for schools. Kids will learn at home. No janitors, no principals, no buildings. Like all of that cost will go away. Those construction costs will go away. So there's some ancillary that we're not even talking about here, but teaching would be one I wouldn't want to get into. Inside of the next 10 years, I guarantee you we have AI, virtual teachers going on. VR itself, virtual reality as a whole, is coming, and we just talked about it with teachers. You're going to see it in business travel as well. So there's a company in Canada called Lamazoo. I know, crazy name, I love it. But basically that company uses what they call twinning, which is where you make a digital representation of the real world in VR. Then you overlay some business intelligence, drone footage, LiDAR, a bunch of other sort of virtual reality and real world technologies, and you marry them into one. And what they're currently doing, and I'll give you an example, and it's in a book we're going to talk about, but for this forestry company, basically they saved $55 million for this forestry company. And they did it through reducing business travel, which is highly inefficient. And the way that they did it in this VR system, it put the individuals in the forest. They could measure the trees. They had the height display out on the actual headset where they could see what they were. So they could choose the best trees to cut down. They could go ahead and use the topographical information, and they could plan the best roads through the forest. And they had all the information there. They didn't actually have to put people on the ground. So, you know, you're talking how many millions of jobs in surveying, business travel, all of it. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you all of the jobs there that are going to get cut off the top of my head. The next piece I think that VR is really going to destroy is going to be the real estate industry. I think they're facing a multitude of challenges through, if you look at Zillow, who's just offering you a buy off your house. I wouldn't want to be a real estate agent right now. I know the market's booming, but I think it's a short-term career opportunity. You're going to see that network sort of start to pull people, and then you're going to see VR come in, especially when you look at partnering with something like a Lamazoo or Lamazoo. As those guys take off, you're not going to have to go to as many houses. You're not going to need as many real estate agents to show people houses. You know, you're going to step through them virtually, and then you're going to go to the one or two that you really want to look at. So that's an industry I think is going to get disrupted as well. So the last one, I think you're probably going to see a big disruption out of VR is going to be the travel industry. And the reason I say that is people are lazy. They don't want to go through the hassle of packing a bag, getting on a plane, dealing with lines. Just think about the miserable experience that is flying on an airline. So if you can duck on a set of VR goggles, and this is an example straight out of the book, and I totally agree with it, where you can get the experience at home, and there'll be an ancillary industry that'll pop up where they'll help you get that feel and experience when you're immersed in the technology of where you're skiing the Alps in the morning, and then in the afternoon, maybe you're in Cancun sitting on the beach, you got the warm rays on you, all of that. I think a lot of people are going to opt for that, especially in a time with reduced jobs, reduced income, and that's what you're going to see. This technology is going to drive down wages. It has to. Goods are going to cost less. People are going to be expensive. In order to compete, you're going to have to find efficiencies, and that's what technology is going to give you. And people aren't efficient, and jobs aren't efficient. You have to find other ways to do it. The last industry we're going to go over in this one, and I know it's just sort of but we're running through these, is manufacturing. Manufacturing is going to be hugely disrupted, and really it's going to come in the form of 3D printers. So if we look at 3D printers, the early ones were kind of junk, you know, gimmicky, looked like string cheese pouring out of the can, whatever that stuff was. That's not where they're at now. In 2018, 18 or 19, the 3D printer industry was $7.3 billion. And it's only going to grow. Everybody will have a 3D printer at home. They're getting to the point where they can print metal really well, and they're big in the commercial space. So Yeezy shoes, Kanye West shoes are 3D printed. They're not actually made, but everybody will have one in their house. And when you need something, you're going to download a file, much like you do with your regular printer now, and it's going to print it out. So instead of going to the store when your dishwasher breaks and you need a small plastic gear or whatever, you're going to go online, find a digital file, download that, hit print, that'll print it out, and you put it in yourself. It's going to be super simple, super easy. A lot of the cost in manufacturing is in building a plant, production, finance, labor, and then shipping. If you can distribute the model to where you manufacture on site, it exponentially drives down costs. everything associated with manufacturing is going to get so much cheaper. The longevity of appliances is going to expand because you're going to be able to make your own parts at home. When you look at that, what that means is I don't know how trade's going to work and how tariffs are going to work. I don't know how you tax a digital file that can be made anywhere in the world, shipped around, downloaded. So, long story short, humans are going to be out of jobs, and it's really going to disrupt. It's really going to cause massive deflation, so it'll make everything cheaper. I don't know where a lot of people work. I don't know how a lot of people get money, and I know what a lot of people are going to say. They're like UBI, Universal Basic Income. I don't know where the government gets the money to fund and pay for that. If they're just printing debt, I don't know how that gets repaid when all of your citizens are basically government employees then. This new system and this new paradigm shift that we're facing and the way that it's going is really scary. If I had kids right now, I think I would tell them to go enter one of the trades, be an electrician, be a plumber, HVAC, those types of things. I don't see technology really disrupting those a whole lot right now. Those are still manual types of jobs. You can still build a business out of that and be fairly well off. Beyond that, I definitely wouldn't be going to college. I don't see that as a requirement. I don't think it's enough of a differentiator at this point. 40+% of people have a college degree. It doesn't really separate you like it did in the 70s when your parents were encouraging you to go get college degrees when it mattered and it made you different and it made you stand out in the job market. Today everybody has one. It's really not a thing. Trades are where it's at. I wouldn't even say welding. I think welding sees a disruption there. I think you'll see some automation in welding. Plumbing and electrical, I don't see that right now. HVAC, sort of the same sort of deal. But be prepared. These next 10 years are going to be really transformative for not only the U.S., but the world as a whole. You're going to see, and I don't want to get too far into it, but you're going to see a lot of developing countries blossom up, and we'll talk about it in the next video and in the way that that's going to work out. So, long story short, if you're coming to Wyoming and this is a goal, come and get into a trade or come with a trade sort of skill set. Electrical, maybe carpentry. We'll get into why I think even that one's a little iffy. Plumbing and HVAC, I think, are sort of your pathways, at least right now. But get ready. We're going to see a lot of disruption. A lot of people are going to lose jobs. We need to find a solution and figure out a way to get around this and how to get through it